Imagine a body that has spent decades as a high-frequency vampire, siphoning the light from every room it enters, only to find itself now rotting from the inside out. Tonight, we perform a clinical autopsy on the narcissist's final, most guarded somatic failure. We are uncovering why their reckless hunt for supply inevitably leads to a biological prison of pain in their old age. You've seen them, the aging predators who still pace the floor like starving wolves, desperate for one more hit of validation to prove they still exist. But the chrome is fading, and the internal wiring is corroded by a slow, aggressive acid. The big haunting question is, why does the narcissist's body eventually turn into a crime scene that no amount of expensive silk can hide? In this breakdown, we are exposing the internal famine that drives them into darker, riskier territories as their value drops in the marketplace of souls. We will explore the mechanical void of their identity and why they settle for low-vibration conquests that carry a lethal price. This isn't just about aging, it's about a biological debt that is finally coming due in full. Have you ever felt that strange, vibrating tension in an elderly narcissist's skin? It is the sound of a nervous system on the verge of a catastrophic meltdown. They are junkies of the flesh who have lost their dealer, and the silence of their own company has become a mirror they cannot break. They are gasping for air in a vacuum, and today, we reveal exactly what is killing them. We are pulling back the heavy, cinematic curtains on the hidden biological rot that predators hide from the world. Most people think they are invincible masters of seduction, but in reality, they are emotional scavengers picking through the debris of their own ruin. By the end of this video, you will understand the sacred justice of the somatic collapse and how to stay free. Think about the psychological weight of being a person who only feels real when someone else is reacting to them. When the world stops looking, the narcissist begins to physically and mentally vanish. To stop this dissolution, they engage in high-risk behaviors that a healthy mind finds repulsive. They are chasing a phantom of their youth, and the biological consequences are the stains. Why do they end up with chronic, stinging scars that they keep buried in the dark? It is because the predator eventually loses their ability to be selective. As their mask melts, they move into the shadows, siphoning energy from unstable sources that a sane person would avoid. They are biohazards of their own choices, carrying the residue of 1,000 cold, transactional betrayals. Stay with me, because we are analyzing the specific psychological triggers that lead to their physical downfall. We will detail the shift in power when the empath finally walks away, leaving the abuser to drown in their own toxicity. This is a journey through the narcissist's endgame, a slow-motion car crash of the ego that manifests as a terminal, localized biological disaster. Tonight, we deliver the final truth punch. You are not a victim of their longevity, you are a survivor of a spiritual heist that ended in the thief's own self-destruction. The narcissist is terrified of the dark because the dark is where the echoes of everyone they destroyed come back to haunt their marrow. The power is shifting back to the sun today. You are that sun. This first chapter is your sanctuary of clarity. You've blamed yourself for their wandering eyes, but the lack of boundaries was always the seed of their own decay. They lost the bet the moment you decided your peace was worth more than their dopamine hit. As we move into the psychological breakdown, remember, their physical agony is the only honest thing they have ever owned. To understand the narcissist's biological descent, we must look at the mechanical void of their identity. A narcissist is a human-shaped vacuum with no original signal. They are a collection of stolen echoes and mirrored movements. In their old age, the echoes grow faint. They need the high of a new conquest to prove they still exist in 3 dimensions. It is a lethal need. Metaphorically, the narcissist is a high-end hologram that requires a constant stream of energy from a projector. You were that projector. When you left, the image started to glitch. By the time the somatic weakness of age takes hold, the projector is failing. They are frantically trying to hack into new, unstable networks just to keep the image from fading into the gray void. Their hidden motive for the sexual hunt in old age is internal regulation. A narcissist cannot regulate their own emotions, they need to offload their toxic waste into a receptacle. But as they age, the high-quality receptacles become harder to find. They settle for anyone, anywhere, regardless of the cost. They are dumping acid into a world that is dumping back into them. We must talk about the narcissistic void as a spiritual hunger that eats character. Because they have no internal pilot, they are blown by the winds of validation. When the physical supply was high, they felt invincible. But in the silence of their own company, they flatline. This flatline is a psychic death. Their pursuit of supply is the hardening of malice into their skin. Imagine a star that has run out of fuel. It begins to contract and collapse under its own gravity. That is the narcissist in the end stage of their life. They have burned through all their high-grade supply and their reputation is a ruin. They are isolated in a cold universe of their own creation, frantically searching for a sun to siphon, but they are far too heavy to move away. Their internal chaos is a static storm of projective identification. In the dark, they start to project their own self-loathing onto every body they touch. This is why they become more reckless. They need to turn their biological failures into a war so they don't have to face the mirror. They would rather die of a plague than live in the quiet peace of the truth. They hate peace. The narcissist is a somatic junkie who has worn out their reward circuitry. They've spent decades chasing the dopamine of conquest, but the law of diminishing returns has kicked in. The act no longer gives them the high it used to. They need more, faster, and dirtier. This escalation is what leads them to the literal diseases they once thought they were too elite to catch. In the twilight hours, the narcissist experiences somatic dissociation. They literally lose the ability to feel their own presence without someone else's reaction. They need the friction of another body to convince them they are solid. Without that friction, they feel like they are dissolving into gray static. They are ghosts in a human suit, haunting the beds of the living. Deep down, the narcissist finds human vulnerability to be repulsive. It reminds them of their own fragility. They despise you for the very love you gave them. But in their state of prolonged hunger, the disgust is splashbacking. They are disgusted by their own face in the mirror. They are drowning in a sea of self-loathing, and every hand they reach for is a hand they bit. The psychological breakdown reveals an abuser as a closed system running out of energy. They are cooling down to absolute zero. Their biological rot is the end of the motion. As we move into the turning point, you will see what happens when the empath finally switches off the lights. You are going to see the power shift from the hungry ghost back to the radiant, sovereign sun. The dramatic turning point arrives when the predator realizes they can no longer pass for human. It happens the moment they realize their charm has curdled into a visible, oily desperation. They are no longer the one choosing, they are the one begging. This is the psychological plot twist they never saw coming. The hunter has become the scavenger, picking through debris. Watch the narcissists panic when the high-value mirrors refuse to reflect them. They are addicts who have been cut off by the elite dealers. They try to hysterical hoover everyone from their past, but the bridges are burnt. This stillness is traumatic to the predator. They scent their own irrelevance in the air. They realize they are no longer the main character of the play. This is the moment of internal sovereign alignment where you realize their abuse was a filter they placed over your eyes. You take the filter off and see the abuser for what they actually are, a small, frightened, empty shell screaming for attention. The rot is visible now. You don't feel anger anymore, you feel clinical observation. You are the scientist, they are the lab. When rage fails, they pivot to strategic victimhood. They will use their biological illnesses, the very ones they caught through recklessness, to guilt-trip you into returning. They are frantically trying to load the syringe of their shame and inject it into your compassion. But you see the calculation. You recognize the performance. By naming the demon, you strip its power. The silence of the empath becomes the acid that accelerates the rot. Without your empathy to heal the wounds they self-inflict, the abuser's internal injuries fester. They start fighting with the nurses, the neighbors, and the strangers. They are spiraling into chaos because they cannot exist without a calm center to disturb. You were that anchor, and you have cut the rope. They attempt a malignant discard to save the last shred of their ego. They announce to the world that you are the problem, that you are the one who is sick. This is a psychological confession of their own internal failure. They are projecting their own biological death onto you. But you are relieved. You accept the discard like a promotion. You watch them walk out of life. Show the shift in the energetic signature of your life. The moment the abuser is gone, the space sanctifies. You strip the bed, you burn the sage, and you open the windows. You realize that the plague was a contagion they brought into your temple. Now that the carrier is gone, your vitality returns. You breathe into your center and feel the radiance of your own spirit. This is a psychological shift. You forgive the vessel for absorbing the rot. You realize your body was just trying to survive a toxic spill. You nurture the flesh with self-respect. You realize the relationship was a dark initiation that forced you to find your internal sword. You thank the trauma for breaking the mirror and revealing the sovereign. You have finally graduated. This is the moment of total detachment. You look at the past and you don't feel pain, you feel physics. You see the mechanism of the energy transfer. The abuser is a name you barely remember. They are a minor malfunction in the great machine of your evolution. The turning point is absolute. You are inhabiting your life with an intensity that is terrifying to the weak. As we move into the collapse, remember, the abuser depends on your reaction to stay three-dimensional. By withdrawing your focus, you have deleted their existence in your universe. They are going to panic and burn their own world down to get your attention. But you are no longer the firefighter. You are watching the fire from the high ground, safe in your own sovereignty. The collapse of the narcissist is a spectacle of absolute void. When the empath stops absorbing the rot, the abuser's false self shatters from the internal pressure of its own nothingness. They experience narcissistic mortification, the psychic death they've been running from since childhood. You will see them acting out with manic recklessness. Their mask is melting like acid. Their social consequences are swift and public. As the recovered empath moves through the world with quiet dignity and icy indifference, the abuser's smear campaign evaporates into the stench of desperation. The truth has its own gravity. People start seeing the pattern of the withered victims the abuser leaves behind. You are the witness who survived the clinical autopsy. The internal panic of the abuser becomes a manic screaming for new supply that no longer exists in your space. They look for you in every face they exploit, but no one can reflect the God image you once gave them. They are starving for the high-grade empathy your sacred energy used to provide, but the pharmacy is permanently closed. They killed the golden goose for sport. Watch the harsh truth of their new life. They look old. They look grey. They look brittle. The life force they stole from you has expired, and they have no internal reactor to generate more. They are cursed to repeat the same loop with lesser and lesser souls until they draw their last breath. They are trapped in a body that is closing down, haunted by the memory of the sun. The tone is brutally cold and analytical. The abuser is a parasite that underestimated the resilience of the empath. By moving on spiritually, you have executed the predator. They are the walking dead, carrying the corpse of their own ego. They hate you for surviving their spiritual warfare. Every breath of peace you take is a poison to their delusion. They are collapsing. Internal panic leads to pathological stalking of your happiness. They analyze your every post, searching for a sign of pain, a sign of return. But they find nothing but strength. This strength is traumatic to the abuser. It debunks their God complex. It proves they are just a glitch in your evolution. They are screaming from the shadows, trying to cast a spell you don't hear. The social discard concludes with the final isolation. The flying monkeys have woken up. The family has distanced themselves. The abuser is left alone with the ghost of the one they couldn't destroy. This isolation is the mirror they feared their whole life. In the silence, they are forced to hear the echoes of their own lies. They are stroking the air where you used to be. Brutally truthful analysis. The abuser failed because they miscalculated the resilience of the spirit. They thought they could starve the empath, but they only forced the empath to hibernate and evolve. Once you wake up and retain your energy, you are invisible to their manipulation. The narcissist is a shadow that cannot exist in the presence of your internal solar truth. Intensify the collapse. You watch their disintegration with a sense of sacred justice. You don't feel vengeance, you feel order. You see that the world is actually safe because you are the one who defines your reality. The abuser's rage is a distant noise that no longer reaches your frequency. You are living at a depth they cannot reach. The monster is finally clinically dead. As we enter the final truth, look at the ruin of the abuser and realize, you are the winner. The rot was just the shell of your evolution. You have found the key. You have opened the door. You have walked into the world and the world recognized you. The final truth is cinematic, empowering, and saturated with radiance. The collapse is complete. The sunrise is now internal. We have reached the final truth. The biological decay you witnessed in them was never about a virus, it was about the inevitability of a life lived without a soul. You were the oxygen tank they used to survive the vacuum of their own narcissism, but today, you have disconnected the line. They are finally breathing the air of a world they poisoned, and the air is lethal. Emotional closure comes from the absolute knowledge that the abuser never existed as the person you loved. You were in love with a reflection of your own empathy. Today, you have taken the reflection back. You are closing the case file on the predator. You have realized that their hate was a badge of honor. A being of darkness will always hate the sun. You are the sun. Healing is the cinematic slow burn of presence. It is the feeling of the ground under your feet, the sound of your own voice telling the truth, and the sight of a future that is unwritten and safe. You are reprogramming your nervous system to expect beauty and respect. You are learning that empathy is a superpower, not a sentence. You are finding your soul in the quiet. Empowerment is the quiet strength of the empath who refused to stay defined by the predator. You have seen the bottom of the abyss and you brought back the fire. You are unshakable. The narcissist's screams from the shadows are just background noise in the symphony of your life. You have changed the frequency. You are tuned into the voice of the universe and the earth. You are part of a global awakening of sovereign empaths who are refusing to be supply. We are collective strength. We are spiritually invincible. The narcissist's obsession with your energy was the last stand of a dying parasite. The age of the predator is ending. The age of the authentic is beginning. Your voice is a siren of truth for others who are still shaking. Imagine the final scene. You are standing on a mountain peak at dawn. The wind is blowing through your spirit, cleansing the last traces of the abuser's shadows. Below you, the dark valley of the narcissistic trap is dissolving in the light of the new day. Above you, the sky is exploding with colors you can finally see again. You are whole. You are complete. You are home. Cinematic closing imagery. The abuser is now a distant ghost, stalking the ruins of a life they burnt. They are screaming at the wind, begging the dust to become the host again. But the dust stays dust. You are flesh and blood, light and fire, moving at the speed of joy. You have found your tribe. You have found your peace. The spiritual necrosis was just a dark cocoon. The final truth deliverance. The narcissist tried to kill the empath because they were terrified of what would happen if the soul went sovereign. They wanted to keep you as a battery, but the battery exploded into a sun. You are magnificent. You are unstoppable. You have won the game by walking off the field. You have ascended beyond the manipulation. The ghost is dead. Reclaim your space. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your right to walk the earth with confidence and dignity. The sexual killer, the psychological parasite, and the emotional arsonist have no power here in the presence of your light. Use it to warm your own life. Use it to create beauty. You are a generator of universal light, and the grid is restored. You are the master. The narcissist's biological rot is the debt they can never repay, but your victory is the radiant pulse of a heart that refused to go dark. Walk into your future with the fire of the chosen, because the predator has finally run out of time and you have just begun to live. The act is over, the mask is shattered, and you are finally, irrevocably free.